I'm Brian, and welcome to Pruitt Homestead. Today we are going to be making grandmother's pear preserves. I went out earlier to a friend's house and they have a pear tree, and I don't know what the variety is. All I know is it's a green pear and it's really hard. It's not like an Asian pear that's soft when it's ripe. This pear really never gets soft like a pear you would buy in the grocery store. All I know is my grandmother used to call it that old green pear that ain't fit to eat, right? So that's the pear we use to make grandmother's pear preserves. It's not a difficult process at all, but it is time consuming and it's labor intensive. And that's really what I want to show you today on Pruitt Homestead. Start by peeling your pears. If you have chickens, the chickens love these pear skins. You'll notice the firmness of this particular pear. I wish I knew the variety, but I don't think that's important. Here in southeast Georgia, these pears grow wild everywhere. After you have a pear peeled, use your paring knife and slice that pear in half is what I like to do, and then in quarters, and this will make it easy to get the core out of the center. After you have your core cut out, slice the pear nice and thin. You want to make sure that the pear is thin because once we start cooking it, we'll be cooking a lot of the water out of the pears. Again, peel your pear. I like to cut the pear in half and then into quarters, and it makes it a lot easier to remove this core. Then slice your pear. Nice and thin. It doesn't have to be paper thin. What you're going for is a consistent slice. I've done another video on making my grandmother's pear preserves, but I feel like it's important in this process that we go through to make these pear preserves, to remember and to reflect on where they came from, right? This is my opportunity to reflect on visiting my grandmother and grandfather in Nicholasville, Kentucky. It was always an adventure. It was always fun. My grandparents loved us dearly, and they showed us that love in so many different ways. Her pear preserves was one of those ways. Her lard biscuits was one of those ways. And there are so many stories that were shared sitting on the porch with my grandparents. Stories about hard times, stories about births, stories about challenges, and stories about victories. as a society, it seems to me that we don't share those stories anymore. And it's so important to our children that maybe we change that pattern. Maybe we need to pause for a moment as parents and grandparents, put away the devices and share stories. Share stories about going to visit your grandmother, and about the stories and the trials and the struggles, the triumphs and the victories. Because that piece of history is rapidly being diminished and taken away and forever lost. The next step in the process of making these pear preserves is to put sugar on the pears. And it's a really, really complex recipe. So you might want to get a pen and a piece of paper and just write this down. I'll wait for you. I'm just going to load these pears into this measuring cup here. So if you've got your pen and your piece of paper, what you want to do is measure pears. This is an 8-cup measuring cup. So for every 8 cups, you're going to want to put 4 cups of sugar. So for every 2 cups of pears, it's 1 cup of sugar. And this does not have to be exact. So put your sugar on your pears in your pot and give them a good mix. You want to make sure every slice of pear is coated with sugar. It's extremely important to get every piece of pear coated with sugar, because what's going to happen is it's going to start drawing the water out of the pears, and it will start developing the syrup that you'll use to pack these pears in the jar once it's cooked. So my grandmother would call this sugaring the pears. That was her term, and I think I'll stick with that. It seems to work. Once you have all the sugar and the pears in there, you'll notice that the juice in the pear is going to start coming out, and it's going to be making a syrup. I'll bring you in here and let you take a look. So you can see there's a syrup developing at the bottom of the pan, and as this sits, more and more water will come out of the pears and make this syrup for us. Once you have all of your pears coated with sugar, you can just put the lid on it and leave it sitting out overnight. You can refrigerate it, but you don't have to. The sugar will protect it and keep it from spoiling. Some people even say leaving it out at room temperature will allow it to begin to ferment, and that fermentation will assist in the preservation of your pear preserves. So leave it overnight, and we'll come back to it tomorrow and finish grandmother's pear preserves. Good morning and welcome back to Pruitt Homestead. We are working on grandmother's pear preserves. We already have them on the stove and cooking. The process of cooking these pears and getting them to the right temperature and consistency takes probably around 2 to 2.5 hours. You want to make sure that you have a nice strong boil, and really what we're doing is we're cooking most of the water out of the pears. My mother and my grandmother always told us to watch the color of the juice, and you could also do a cold plate test where you put some of the syrup on a plate, put it in the refrigerator, and kind of watch how it runs on the plate, and when that reaches the correct consistency, you can pull it off. I like to watch the color. It's what my mother taught me to do. And we're going to monitor this, and we're going to stir it frequently, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. Give it a good stir. Make sure that those pears are getting mixed up in the syrup. That'll ensure that they're cooking evenly. You'll notice the pears go from sort of a white color like this. Ooh, that's hot now. Ooh. Sort of a white color like this to a more of a brown color. And what's happening is the sugar is caramelizing and the pears will get translucent. That's the best way to describe it. They'll be sort of translucent, and the color will change to a darker brown, and the syrup will change to a darker brown. So we're just going to stir this for about 2 hours. It's been going now for around a half hour, so we've got quite a ways to go, but I'm going to keep you updated, and we'll keep looking at the color. I'm going to bring you in here right now and let you take a look at this color. This is what it's looking like right now, and like I said, this has been going for about a half hour, so there's been some change, not enough significant change that it would make a difference in this video. But we got a lot of syrup in there, and in that syrup is a lot of water. We want to cook that water out of those pears, because water is the enemy when it comes to preserves. So you want to get as much of that water out as possible. We don't add any pectin to this because it's not required. Pears have a natural pectin already in them, and when this is done, it will be nice and thick. While we are waiting for those pear preserves to get finished cooking, we're going to try to get a few chores done. And don't worry, I won't let anything happen to those pear preserves. There's a little pepper harvest for you, right? That's 1, 2, 3, that's 4 pepper plants. As you can see, we are starting to get some color change. You can see that brown that's starting to develop, that caramel color. And you can see that some of the pears are starting to get that translucent appearance. So we are coming right along. It won't be long on those pear preserves. But we want to get these peppers harvested before it gets hot today. These are the same peppers that we harvested last week. Hey there, chicken. What you doing? You coming to lay an egg? It's Albert. Albert has decided. Come here. Albert has decided that she can no longer lay eggs in the coop with the rest of the chickens. She has one place where she can lay her eggs. Albert has decided she only has one place she can lay eggs. She can't lay eggs with the rest of the girls over there. She has to lay her eggs here in my greens patch. That right there is the only place she lays eggs. So guaranteed every day I could come out here and find one Albert egg. I know you're all thinking, why does he call that chicken Albert? That's a female chicken. It's my chicken, and I like to call her Albert since she was a little old tiny thing. I do monitor the temperature, but more than that, I monitor the color, right? I keep talking about the color of these pear preserves, and I think that is going to be, once you've done this, that's going to be that big indicator to you that you're going to get a better understanding of what my grandmother and my mother talked about when it came to the color of pear preserves. So I've got a jar here of pear preserves that we made last year. I'm going to try to get you under the light here so you can see. I think that's better. So you can see the color of these pear preserves, and I'm not sure that you can notice, but the syrup is extremely thick in there. And that is why that color is so critical, because we are really making a syrup that we are canning our pears in. If you haven't already, now's a great time while we're waiting for this to get finished. Give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that bell notification button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification. Then go over to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok and follow us over there. On Sunday nights, we're going to start doing a program on Facebook, a live show on Facebook, where we want to interact with you. We want to answer questions and just kind of get a feel of what's happening in the urban homesteading community and have a little bit of fun. You never know who's going to be there. You never know what we're going to talk about. But what we're going to do is we're going to have fun. And we want you to be a part of that community over on Facebook. So just go find us on Facebook, Pruitt Homestead, Instagram, Pruitt Homestead. It's looking good. Let's compare our color, right? We're pretty close. I'm confident there's a group of people that are thinking of the economics of making pear preserves and the value of it. I think we have to look beyond the dollar value. Okay, dollar-wise, let's talk about investment. The pears I got were free. The sugar, I might have about $5 worth of sugar, $6 worth of sugar to make these pear preserves. It's going to produce 6 pints, 6 half pints. So if we said $7 a pint, what don't we say, $10 a pint for homemade pear preserves. I think if you go to any craft shop or any specialty shop, you're going to spend $10 on a pint of homemade preserves. So if I get 6 pints, that's $60. That's pretty good return on investment for $6 worth of sugar, right? So the economics is, yes, cost of goods, yes. I spent 2 hours, maybe 3 hours yesterday cutting up the pears, and I have spent now around 2 hours cooking the pears this morning. What's my time worth? I think the better question is, what is your time worth if we're doing economics, right? So whatever your job might be, or whatever however you value yourself, add that number in there. But I think more than the economics of it, more than the dollars and cents, we've already established, yes, it's a good investment. It's $5 worth of sugar and free pears to produce $100 worth of pear preserves. So we're talking $60 worth of pints and easily $40 worth of half pint jars of preserves. Yes, the economics work out. The dollars and cents way out. More than that is you are carrying on a tradition. You're carrying on history and wisdom from mothers and grandmothers and fathers, right? And I think that wisdom has a greater value, especially in today's climate. Being able to take raw materials and turn them into a finished product that you could put on the table and provide for your family. There's huge value in that. And I believe now is a really good time to grasp that. Folks, we are in a world right now that is changing so rapidly, and we are trying to, let's say, there's a group of people in this world that are trying to suppress history and wisdom, and we really need a lot of that wisdom, especially today. Even though I don't have my girls here with me during this process of making pear preserves, what I have done is I have documented the process for them. And now, as long as I haven't violated any YouTube guidelines, they can come back whenever they please and use this as use this video as a tool to know how to make pear preserves. And in that process, they'll be able to remember eating those pear preserves and enjoying them and reflecting on family time. That's my hopes. I don't know what my daughters are going to experience in the future. But there's this. There's grandmother's pear preserves. I dropped my other thermometer, and it wasn't reading accurately anyways. We are over 220 degrees with that thermometer. I am going to contend that we are ready to put these in jars, and it's beautiful. The process of jarring preserves is really not difficult at all. Get your clean, sterilized jars. Let me get my plate here. Get your clean, sterilized jars out, and make sure you have a canning funnel. We have a couple of different styles. I'm going to use the plastic one. And just start ladling your hot preserves. Give it a good stir. Those preserves want to float. Give it a good stir. And then we're just going to ladle the hot liquid into the jars. With preserves and jellies, you can leave a 1/2 inch head space. Get a paper towel, wipe the rim, because you want to make sure there are no contaminants on the rim. Put a lid on, a ring, and now that jar is going to be exceptionally hot. Make sure you got a towel and tighten that down, finger tight, just like that. Put your jars on a dry towel. And this is the process. Just fill these jars up so that you've got about a 1/2 inch head space. And I like to make sure there's plenty of syrup in my jars of my preserves, because I like the syrup. Wipe the rim. Put a lid on. Put your ring on. And tighten that down. Fill your jar so that you have about a 1/2 inch head space. Clean the rim off. Lid. Ring. It's not a complex process. Again, it's just really more of an investment of time. I wish you could see the color that we keep talking about. I know that the camera is really not going to do it the justice that it deserves. And I wish you could see the way I see it. It is a rich, dark caramel color. I can bring it up to that camera and you can see it's pretty dark. And when we compare it to last year's, it's actually a little bit darker. When you're doing preserves and canning, there should always be a sense of preparation for the unknown. Because really, that's what we are doing when we're making preserves like this and we're making canning vegetables, is we are essentially preparing for the unknown. We don't know that we will have pears next year. You know, it's just like I was telling you earlier. You know, we went to my grandmother's and she said the pear tree was struck by lightning, and she didn't know that there would ever be pear preserves ever again. So we should keep that in the back of our mind when we're doing this, and just kind of think to ourselves, how much do I need for this year, and how much do I need to carry me over? Because there may be a time where we need to be held over for a year. And if we have done our part and planned and prepared appropriately, we won't get into a position where we are lacking anything. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the entire process of making grandmother's pear preserves. We've got 12 pints and 6 half pints of pear preserves to last us through the year and possibly into next year. I want to encourage you, go get some hard green pears that aren't fit to eat and put some sugar on them and make grandmother's pear preserves. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here with making pear preserves, please share our video and share our channel with your friends. We're confident you have at least 2 friends out there that would love to learn to make grandmother's pear preserves, or maybe grow some vegetables in their backyard in an urban homestead just like we are here.